Yo, so I got my boy Ola from the Fight Week Show. Y'all have seen him on here before. If you don't know, I don't want to say if you don't know how you now you know, like that's so Dana White now, but you should know who this is. If you haven't subscribed to the Fight Week Show and seen us on the Dust Up Shakedown, you should definitely do so. But first of all, how you doing? How was UFC 312 for you?
Yeah, you know what? Thank you for thank you for the invite today, man. When I got the invite from you, my eyes kind of lit up. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pulling up on Jax today. You chose the wrong card to ask me to come join you on here. So when you ask me how I'm feeling about this card, and you're Mr. Basement, like, bro,
I was waiting on this. I was waiting on this.
I'm feeling great.
So let me explain this to anybody that doesn't know. So on the Fight Week Show, we're in a competition and we're picking fights. And so far, through the first, is this the fourth event? And through the first four events, your boy is at the bottom of the table, man. I'm in the basement. But I tell you what, I can see somebody on the stairs. And that's this man over here.
The stairs are so far away from the basement, bro. It's like 1 point no more.
It's 2 points. I'm 2 points down, but it's all right, man. You know what I'm good at is I'm not fantastic at picking fights in comparison to my colleagues, but I'm very, very good at analyzing them. But speaking of that, let's jump directly into the fights and talk about really the top of the card. So you got Dricus Du Plessis, who defeated Sean Strickland rather convincingly. And I really don't think that Sean had anything really for him. And then Zhang Weili did what she does and took away all the Tatiana Suarez hype. And it brought about a couple of things when it comes to their next fights, which is the possibility of both of them moving up in weight class. And even in the back, we heard Ilia Topuria talking in an interview about moving up to lightweight, possibly to challenge Islam Makhachev. And the question that I have for you as a scholar of the UFC is, do you think that there should be a hard and fast rule on the amount of title defenses that need to occur before a fighter moves up? Or should it just remain open the way that it is now?
First of all, congratulations to Dricus Du Plessis, a friend of the Fight Week Show, Zhang Weili as well. Both of them remaining and still because it's a big deal in the UFC. Fighting the way they did. I think they're both 50-45 their opponents, which is crazy in the title fight.
Mm-hmm.
So big congratulations to those guys. Now, in terms of fighters wanting to move up or fighting another champion or sort of creating a super fight, if you like, in terms of what you're alluding to, this is something that I've really frowned upon, over the years. And it's not because I don't like it. It's because I like champions at least defending, say, 3 times, depending on who you beat on your way up, because there's so many fighters and people know this, right? If you're an MMA fan, whether it be UFC, PFL, Bellator, regardless, there are certain fighters that on their come up, nobody wants to fight them, right? So eventually they fight everybody along the way until there's no one else to fight. So they start getting the ranked opponents. And then the ranked opponents, they start ducking. And eventually they beat everybody in and around it until they get who's ducking. And then you go all the way to the top till there's no one else to fight. Right? So if your come up is kind of like that, then I can understand if you beat, say, you defend 1 or 2 times, and then you're looking at a super fight in a higher, like in a higher division. But if, say, you're like a Alex Pereira, for example, 4 fights in, you get a title fight, you win, and then you're talking about 205. Or you're like a Ilia, you've not really gone through the division, the way we saw Alex Volkanovski really look after that division, like really rule that division. Max Holloway did it as well, really rule that division, right? Until, unless you do something like that, then I don't give you a pass for looking for that super fight. You got to be defending at least 2, 3, 4 times. But where you're coming into the question with a rule, I like it open, but proper discretion being applied to it. Right? Don't just give away these super fight willy nilly. The match. This is putting more onus on the matchmakers as to the fighters, because the fighters, they can ask for what they want, but it's whether it makes sense for the matchmakers, right? So for me, it's more onus on the matchmakers to really, like, put their foot down a little bit and say, no, you're not going up there yet. We don't think you're ready. We don't think you got enough eyes to really pull off this super fight. Defend here a couple more times, and then we'll see about that. In the case of say Ilia, but in the case of, say, Zhang Weili, that's when you look at what she's done, she's kind of earned the right to go up there and see Valentina Shevchenko. Say, assuming Valentina is still the champion, in the next fight. And when you look at, say, someone like Islam, I think he's done enough to go to 170 in terms of doing the UFC a favor, right? And fighting all these fighters since the second Volkanovski fight. He'd been talking about 170, and then they say, "Yeah, fight Zeroukian. Yeah, then fight this guy." Then they just fought Moicano again and saved the card. He could have said, "No, I don't want to fight Moicano." You know what I mean?
Could
He didn't
have.
have to, but as a company man, which sometimes as a champion you have to be, they put an opponent in front of you, you go and fight him. So he's kind of done his deals in that respect. So I'm not mad at him, thinking about say uh, 170 and then going to see the champion over there. So someone like a Pantoja, for example, we know the extensive work that is done. So it really kind of depends on what you've done on your way up, or what you did while you've been a champion. We've seen people like Izzy, Usman really lap the division and really take the division by storm and handled it properly and defended very, very frequently as well. And this is what I want to see from these champions: defend a few times, and then I'm all for you going up, but just win the title like Ilia did on his first. Like, you literally just won the title and you're calling out Conor McGregor, or you're calling out the champion. That don't make no sense to me. You know what I mean?
It don't.
It makes zero sense. So yeah, I like a few defenses, but I would like them to keep it open, because once they put that stipulation on it, you could really go and defend against two, I don't know, nobodies. I don't want to call the guy that came from Rising that fought Pantoja a nobody, but kind of like he is. You know what I mean? So
Kind of.
yeah, so
Nobody.
you could rack up them kind of defenses and then start talking about. So you need to look after your division. Is, in my opinion, the fighters in your division should be the priorities first.
Yeah, man. I feel like this is where my OG bias comes in, which y'all look out for that video. I'm gonna make an OG biased video, because it's real, man. Especially people like myself, like you, Ola, that have been watching these fights for so long. Probably decades at this point. Like, when I think back of the fighters who did not get this opportunity, it makes me feel like, okay, the fighters of this generation, you need to do a little work to deserve it. When I think about Anderson Silva, who went up and fought James Irvin and slept him, went up and fought Forrest Griffin and slept him, like, he deserved to fight for the 205 belt, but they wouldn't allow him to do it. And we all know what would have happened if he would have fought for that 205 belt during that time.
It would
But
have
he
played
never
it out.
got that opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's so many others that probably could have gone up while they were champions, but they didn't get that opportunity because a hard and fast rule was there that Dana put into place, where he's not going to allow people to um, be champions in two divisions, because he felt like that was going to slow the division. In walks Conor McGregor and opens up the gates, which I'm fine with, But it's just I feel like I don't want people to even start to spin the narrative of going up until they've done the work. You got to come in and do the work. Like Islam has done the work. Like he's done the work. He deserves it. He deserves to go up. He did the company a favor multiple times, stepped in when he didn't have to. He deserves to go up. Whereas even though Ilia is knocked out, two legends, he's only defended the belt one time. So, I need you to stay and do the work. There's other fights there for you. Pantoja, he's done the work. So I feel like the rule would make them do the work. Now, it could be some can crushing that could happen, but more than likely,
can I throw one at you?
yeah.
Merab, do you think he's done the work?
I mean, it's hard to say that he hasn't because of who he's fought. Because he was in a weird situation. Like he was basically Aljo's knight or his bishop, while he was champion, and he had to fight all these people that Aljo didn't have to fight. So he ended up having
work, right?
Yeah, he did the work. He did the work. Yes. So it's like, those are special circumstances, and I get that. So I don't know. It's a tough one, but I kind of hate hearing all of the go up and fight other champions before really deserving it. It really gets on my nerves. It really does.
It's one of my biggest bugbear, bro. Like I see them on the mat and I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, you made a fantastic point earlier on in bringing Conor McGregor into this. He kind of opened up this crazy gate where fighters are now thinking, I don't even have to defend. Conor did it. Why can't I do it? He didn't have to, defend against Aldo. He didn't even offer him a rematch. You know what I mean? And he's gone and fought for the next title. Like, so he didn't defend neither of the titles, neither, which is one of the reasons why we're saying look after your division before, giving that kind of opportunity away to another fighter. The Conor is a very, very good example of why you shouldn't do it until you've done the work.
Yeah, I mean, and Conor he is the poster child, in my opinion, and I bring it up a lot of times on this channel that Conor has defended no belts. He's defended no belts. Like, and I bring up the example that you can go into his house right now and just go take a belt, any belt, a Gucci belt, Yves Saint Laurent belt. It don't matter. Go take his belt because he ain't defending it. He ain't defending nothing.
He'll let you walk right off with it, bro.
He will.
He'll let you walk right off with it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like when you allow them to do those things, it devalues the belt. And we've all spoke ad nauseum about the way that the belt sometimes gets devalued and it's more about the person that you're fighting. I feel like when you do something like this and you make the fighter defend the belt, it brings more value to the belt. And that's what's important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's the one, like I said, the onus is more on the matchmakers now than the fighters can ask for what they want. If you don't ask, you don't get, right? It's up to now the matchmakers to really say, you know what, we need you to do the work for these fans, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
do a little something before we let you go up there. So.
Speaking of people who can possibly go up, I mean, I think that they should. I think she should. Zhang Weili. I mean, she schooled Tatiana Suarez, man. Like I picked Zhang Weili, but I thought that Tatiana Suarez had a direct path to winning that fight just because of her size, the way that she pressures, and Zhang Weili showed that there's levels. There's definitely levels, and she made Tatiana Suarez look very, very one-dimensional. She kind of looked like Brian Ortega in there, a little bit.
The question was going so well.
It was, wasn't it? It's still going well, and so
you had to do it, bro. No,
but do you think that the way that fight turned out was more about Tatiana not being ready, or was it more about Zhang Weili just being that much better?
Okay. Look, Zhang Weili is that's the straight answer. She's just that much better, and that's not to take anything away from Tatiana's skill set. The reason why I said it's not because Tatiana was so bad. That's why Zhang Weili made Tatiana look bad. Most of these other fighters leading up to Zhang Weili, Tatiana would have been same as usual. You know what I mean? Just another day in the office for Tatiana. She'll go in there, grab them, ragdoll them, ground and pound, maybe get a finish. You know, job done.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something we've seen her do time and time again. And when she's taking time off, because of the injuries and a lot of the people that really thought Weili was gonna do it, they were all thinking time out of the cage. Octagon Rust is gonna play a factor in this, right? But at the same time, when you see every single time that Tatiana comes back off of injury, she doesn't show any kind of ring rust or octagon rust. She doesn't show no
Yeah.
cage rust. She just goes in there and goes about her business and
Mm-hmm.
executes in a magnificent way. So it kind of gave food for thought for a lot of people going into this fight and who they're gonna look to pick. Now, Weili, if you didn't have no respect for this champion before, I think it's silly not to. But at this point, this is where you really got to show Weili. For me, she showed all aspect of a fight in this one fight. Every single aspect of it. Ground, striking, grappling, clinch work. She did everything immaculately. And she's a superstar, man.
Yes, she is.
Weili is a superstar. And she did tell us we will remember her name. Not like Belal. She told us. And bro, she told us that we will remember her name. And for me, she is right up there with, I'm not gonna put her to a Nunes level, but I'm gonna put her to Shevchenko's sort of level. That's where I'm gonna put her. I think she surpassed Rose was talking about. I think you brought up the question during the watch along, or somebody brought up the
Mm-hmm.
question during the watch along. And I think because of the people that she's beat and the kind of fights that she's been in, I still, just watching that Izzy Gastelum Hall of Fame sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a matter of time before she gets one of those against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, if she hasn't got it already.
Dude, I thought
You
that was
know,
going to be the pick.
you know what I mean? Like that's is so up there in terms of some of the best fights that you would see, not just in women's MMA, in MMA, full stop. In MMA, full stop. And Zhang Weili has got her name chiseled in that. So for me, she really is that good, and she made Tatiana look bad to the point where Tatiana stopped setting up her takedowns, and she was running from
Yeah.
God knows where to try and secure a takedown. I'm like, no, what are you doing?
It
Like,
looked
why?
bad.
She's never done that before either, and
Yeah.
that's to prove that Weili made her, behave that way in the cage. Weili made her throw all her game plans out and basically reduced her tactics to nothing,
Yeah.
and Tatiana was just trying to survive in there. And I thought by the third round or something, she was out. She was gassed. She was
Yeah.
gassed. She couldn't do anything in there. And we know what Weili's cardio is all about. We've seen it with Jędrzejczyk and some of the other, 5-round fights that she's been in. So yeah, she's a stud, man. And I think she's gonna be a champion in that division for a long, long time.
For as long as she wants, man. At this
Yeah.
point, I mean, it, I agree with you. Like it really was just Zhang Weili is just that much better, and it's interesting. The Rose thing, and the Joanna thing. Like to me, those are the three at the top of the strawweight. I don't think that part can be disputed. A
100%.
lot of people, look at the fact that Joanna had, what was it, 5 title defenses or 4 or 5, and defeated Carla. But then you look at Rose, who defeated both of them twice. that matters as well. Both of
I'm
she
I'm
finished both
finished.
of
I'm
them.
both finished both of them exactly.
Yeah, but on the flip side, she lost twice to a girl that they both defeated. So it's like it's a weird round robin. So like me and CJ were talking about it, and it was like, man, I can understand why people say that Zhang Weili is the best um in the division of all time, at least thus far. I can totally understand it, but fighting head to head in your prime has to matter too. Um, and you know, it is what it is. Because like I almost feel like if you say that Zhang Weili, and I'm not just saying you, but if you say that Zhang Weili is the best in that division of all time, then but she lost to Rose twice, then the same person can't really say that Alexander Volkanovski is the best featherweight of all time, even though he beat Jose Aldo. Because Jose Aldo, he put in that work over two different organizations.
Yeah,
So it's a weird. I mean, and it's there's no right answer to it, but it's a weird discussion when it comes to that division as well as featherweight. Ilya
yeah,
might just wash all that away eventually, um, but it's just a weird conversation. But it's interesting, but to your point, Jean Weili is great regardless of anything.
yeah. I mean, look, I really don't care how where the conversation is. You know why? Because it's the sport we love. This is what
Yeah.
happens in this sport. You know, that person could beat that person, but then the person that got beat could come back around and beat this person that beat that. That's the sport.
Yeah.
The you know the area we operate in, and this is why we love it because you just don't know on any given day what could really happen. I mean, we sat down there watching 312 the other day, and Izzy he sat right next to Alex Pereira, who
Hmm.
he's bit. Pereira's bit him, but Izzy's lost to both of them, and Shama will probably beat both of them that's in the cage. It's crazy when you look about it, when you think of it that way, but
Yeah.
it's the it's the sport. And this is one of the reasons why I fell in love with the sport all those years ago, and to this
Hmm.
day it still matters because you just don't know what's
True.
gonna happen in there.
It's true. It's true. Which I'm glad you brought up Izzy. And it was interesting that he was sitting right there, and his cloud, his aura, kind of hung over the entirety of this particular card. And I know that Dana afterwards talked about the fight between him and Kelvin Gastelum being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he talked about how Izzy didn't know, and Izzy is sat there next to Poatan, and they have their moment. They're taking pictures and stuff and saying that they're going to train together, which is all good. But what's interesting about Izzy is that he's in a weird point of his career where he's 35. He doesn't really have to prove anything anymore. He is who he is at this point. At To me, in my opinion, at worst, he's the second best middleweight of all time. I think that Anderson Silva is the best,
Yeah,
but he is where he is. But as a person, and I know you're Nigerian. I know that you support Israel Adesanya. You have him right over your head right now, and but you care about the man as well as the fighter. What do you feel should be next for Israel Adesanya?
look, Easy is a fighter. I adore in the whole like in the whole sense of it in terms of what it brings to the octagon, the way he carries himself, the type of champion that he was, the type of fighter, and his fighting style, and his build up to fights when it comes to press conference and even some of the antics, if you like. Um, Everything about him and the way he carried himself, he couldn't have been a better passing of the torch from Anderson Silva to another fighter in the middleweight. Now, when you ask me, what do I think he should be doing? I think he should be hanging up the gloves, and I say this because the the Imavov fight really made me feel that way. And the reason I say that, you mentioned his age. Time will always catch up to you, but there are some fighters as well that go into their late 30s and still competing at the highest level. Daniel Crome is, is one of those. John Jones is another, right?
Poet time. Yeah, boy, 37.
Yeah, and competing right at the highest level and still, you know, dominating and still, being elite. But there's sometimes when you get to a certain point in your career and you've done so much, um, the different factor that I would say from those guys to Easy is they wasn't as busy as Easy was, especially when during his defending reign, right from when he won the interim champion, which he recognized as his main title. He don't even see the interim, and
Yeah.
that was the mentality that you need. He needed that mentality going in as a champion and defending for as long as he did. Because if you just saw that as an interim and not a proper belt, then he's kind of worthless to you. But if you make it like, you know what, I nearly died to get this thing here. This is my real title. This is my real title here. He changed how I looked at it. You know what I mean? So for how much he gave the division, for how busy he was defending 3 times a year, every year for 5 years. Go find me any other champion in the UFC in the last 10 years that's done that. I tell you what, you won't find any, right? So for all the yap yap and crazy talk that people wanted to give him, that's fine. But when you look at his catalog of work and what he really did, and then you then couple that with seeing a fighter like Imavov knocking him out.
Yeah.
As a super fan, I'm thinking that boy ain't even fit to lace your gloves, bro. And now he's there finishing you.
Yeah.
Hang this thing up before it gets worse, just trying to chase that swan song, because a lot of fighters do it. A lot of fighters are chasing that swan song. They're chasing that big finish where they get a fantastic, a fantastic fight, a fantastic win, and then retire. No, that don't happen to a lot of fighters. That don't happen to many fighters.
Yeah.
Not many people like Habib Nurmagomedov. You can't just do that. Even Amanda Nunes, I thought, you know what, you got lucky with Pena. You know what I mean, to come and end it the way you did. But not many people get those type of situations.
That's true.
For how long Holloway was defending and the type of champion that he was, again, he's another one that I'm thinking to myself, but I know you're going to 55, but god damn, look what happened over there. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So what I'd like and what what Izzy ends up doing are two totally different things. But
For
yeah,
sure.
I would really love to, see him hang it up and maybe get into coaching, start helping out the guys at City Kickboxing, help them prepare, kind of like what Khabib does now, but maybe not as involved as what Khabib is, but kind of what Khabib is, what Khabib's been doing. So for me, I really think he needs to hang it up. Go and enjoy that money. He made a lot of money defending. He made a lot of money just investing in different types of business. And Izzy's a very very smart guy, and he's got a whole um career set for him outside of the UFC, outside of mixed martial arts. And I think he could really put his mind to, really execute whatever he put his mind to.
Those are great points though on when it comes to the people that we care about. I mean, it really reminds me of, obviously the obvious one, Tony Ferguson. Uh, he we just watched this man erode into dust where I mean, there's cans in the UFC that I feel like can beat this man at this point, and I just don't want to see Izzy go down that road. I'd rather,
And like you said, sorry, just
yeah, go
just
ahead.
just to add to what you were saying, and these cans
Hmm.
they can't even lace a single glove of Tony Ferguson in terms of what Tony Ferguson was doing at his pump. at what we know Tony Ferguson was really capable. I mean, some of the beatings he's put on all of these fighters,
Yeah.
crazy. When you go and look back at his catalog, man, and you see what's happening to him now. And you're right. I don't want to say it. Olin brought up a good point as well with Dustin Poirier. You know, these are some of those fighters, and you think, nah, I don't want to see you go out like this, bro. Like, please hang it up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go and enjoy all that money you made.
Yeah, exactly. There's other things you can do. What I mean, his one of his buddies, Alexander Volkanovski, is another one. I'm like, dude. I mean, and I know like you're losing against the top tier, but that's what makes it even worse. Like your next fight is gonna be another fight against somebody. If it ain't uh, a fight against the champion Ilia Topuria, it's gonna be against Diego Lopez, another monster. So the likelihood of you getting bombed out again is very high. So it's like, I know you're not gonna fight somebody at a lower level, that you can, walk through. So it's like, dude, you're making this really difficult for us right now.
It's tough. It's
It
tough.
is. But speaking of Ilia Topuria, his brother Alexandre Topuria fought, and I I don't know. I don't know if I would call it underwhelming. I think that he did the job. He fought, somebody who was undefeated, who was prepared, who was being coached by a champion himself in Alexander Volkanovski. Um, so what were your takeaways from watching that fight? Were you like unimpressed, or were you just like, this is kind of what you have to do on your way up?
I wouldn't say unimpressed because anybody that steps into the cage, not just any cage, but UFC cage, they you gotta have something about you. You gotta have some set of cojones to even jump in there and do what you do. So respect for that. But as far as the performance in itself, um, there's nothing there for me that's screaming, "Oh shit, he's like his brother. He's gonna be like like and I did mention this the other day. You look at the Tafa brothers and you see a lot of similarity. Like, oh, this
Hmm.
this these guys that can. You see the Bumfin brothers and you
Yes,
think, yeah, you know what, these
absolutely.
guys here, you know, like even the Zaita brothers, like Otman
Hmm.
and Zaita, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They got similar sort of power. With this guy here, I'm thinking, boy, but again, this is his first fight in the UFC, so I'm not gonna kill him too much. And beating somebody like a Colby Thickness that's coming in with a zero record, 7-0 record, and just took the O off of him. That's good, but we I saw the resume of the fighters that Topuria's fight coming into this fight, and I was
well, yeah, it
impressed.
was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. That
It
was
was
ass.
bad.
It was ass.
Yeah.
Real garbage, bro. So, um, we'll see what the UFC carries on doing with him. Um, I'm not gonna call this fight a layoff or anything like that. It was they both debuting, and a lot of people did pick Kobe. Some people that I know did pick Kobe. So, Topira went in there and got the job done. We'll see what's next for him. But as far as being impressed, not really. But like I said, he went in there, he got the W. Sometimes in this sport, getting that W matters a lot. It don't matter how you get it, even on a split decision, even on disqualification, as we see with Aljo. It don't matter how you get it, just just be in that column.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's very true. I mean, if you can get a win while getting your feet wet, I mean, that's a win-win. If you can do that. And he did look tentative, and I think in an interview afterwards, he said that he felt awkward, he felt weird, and that's just what happens when you go out there for the first time. I'm sure. I do think that we'll start to see him get more comfortable and throw heavier shots, because you could kind of see, a little bit of the way that Ilya throws his punches the power that both of them possess. You could kind of see it. He just wasn't able to translate that on somebody who was moving as much as Kobe Thickness was. But I think that we'll start to see those things, and hopefully he gets matched up appropriately. I think somebody brought up, make him against Peyton Talbot. I'm like, nah, let's not do that. Not to say that he can't win, but I don't like when they match up high, um, I guess high value prospects before they reach. Like I'm guilty of saying that I wanted to see Joe Pyfer against Bo Nickel, but I wanted to see that
I've
once
been
they both
wanting
got
that fight
ranked.
for so long.
I want to see it once they get ranked. That's what I wanted to see. Like, get in the rankings. Bo's done his part, but I want to see that then when it actually has something on the line. And I think that I want to see the same for them as well. But I think if he's appropriately matched up, I think that we'll start to see those levels.
Yeah. Can I just add to that situation, that Bo Nickel and Pfeiffer situation? Reason why I wanted to see it so early, and look, this is not something that happens all the time, or something that we can start asking for on a regular. It was just because of how good both of them were, the hype that came with both of them. But them two fighting early on, and then right, I'm gonna compare it to Leon Edwards versus
On
Usman.
Kamaru. Mm-hmm.
Both of them fought so early on, but it made that rematch
True.
so sweet,
True.
because one of them had the braggadocios of Usman saying, "Yeah, I already beat you before. It don't matter what you do. I know you got 11 straight wins to get back to me." Remember the cartoon guy for Mojahed Fadila always doing that. That's 7 fights in a row. That's 8 fights in a row. And doing Leon Edwards win count. That's 9 fights in a row. So he had to get 11 fights to get back to Usman, and then did what he did. And then we know what happened in the third fight as well, which means Leon ended up winning 2, but he didn't win the first one. So if we could get something like that with, say, a Pfeiffer and a Bo Nickel early, and one of them gets to be a champion down the line, but Pfeiffer's not too far behind him, and then rack up them wins, it makes that encounter when they eventually do meet up again so much sweeter. But like I said, it's not something that happens on a regular occurrence. But for the profile of those two and the hype they came with, I thought, you know what, I wouldn't mind them seeing them fight now. And if one of them, because no doubt at some point, one of those two is probably going to end up being champion. More Bo Nickel than Pfeiffer, I would say. But it'd be nice to see what they look like now versus when they get so much better, because you then have like a crazy rematch that still feels like new. You know what I mean? It feels like a new fight, but it's crazy rematch. So those are the reasons why but I'm guilty just like you of wanting that fight. So early on. But there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that that's what makes the UFC so amazing is the fact that we even care, the fact that we even know about these fighters. That's where it differs from boxing. You got fighters who may have fought years and years and years ago, but we don't know. We never saw it because it wasn't publicized the way that it should. But in the UFC, oh, not only do you know, but you saw it, and you get an emotion that's tied to it based on what happened. So that's just the beauty of the UFC for sure.
100%. I agree.
So last question, and this is about the card as a whole. I think that and then watching the watch along, the with you guys on it, like it seemed like the card was well received by purists, people who love the sport, but it wasn't a sexy fight card. Like it didn't have a crazy amount of notable names. If you have Justin Tafa in the, I guess in the jumper seat, the fight right before the co-main, people would normally say, okay, this is kind of a lackluster card, even though a lot of the fights delivered. But do you think that the UFC should delay going back to Australia to allow a lot of those fighters to build up their name and get more notoriety? So the card can have, I guess, more eyeballs, more attention that a card in Australia deserves.
Number one, if I say no, Leroy will kill me. So shout out my boy Leroy. Big love, my bro. Salute to you. But look, on the real, I would. There's no need to stop, or delay going back to Australia like that. I think Australia brings a very good business for the UFC. They got a good crop of fighters out there. Very very, you know, top level fighters. Bobby Knuckles to, Taito Ivasas. All right, I know he's on the slump now, but he did come with a lot of hype. Um,
Super popular.
Urseg now is another name that's jumping out there. I'll tell you what, I was really really surprised. Very very happy with Tom Nolan.
Yeah, Tom Nolan.
Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous individual, bro. You know what I mean? They look, all right. Maybe not Jimmy Crew. Out of everyone, he's probably the one. He's probably the one I'll take a shot at, right? But
Yeah,
Jack Jenkins, I think. Look, it didn't really happen for him in this fight, but I think there's a very very good fighter in there. So
extremely popular. Extremely
yeah,
popular.
they do have some really really good fighters that they can always make a card out of. It's kind of like what we got over here in the UK. Maybe all of these fighters ain't gonna go ahead and be champions. But they got the Jai Herberts, they got the the Molly Meatballs, they got the Paddy Pimblets. There's a reason why Paddy is still being protected against Ilia, even when Ilia was fighting that 145, because
Man,
they know he hangs that chin up real high, bro. You know what I mean?
oh
So,
man, they would have stomped all over that Patty Pimblett train. That'd have
right.
been over
So there's a reason
early.
why they're protecting that. So it's kind of like what we got over here in the UK, but it don't stop them from putting fights on in the UK. We got one coming up in March, right? So Dana knows where the money is. He knows the fans will come out. They'll show out. He knows, you know, these are fighting nations, and that's one of the reasons going to fighting nations like Australia has got a big rugby community, and these guys are tough. These guys are tough guys, So, um, I think anytime they go to Australia, number one, they're gonna make the money. Number two, they're good crop of fighters over there to always make a card, and I don't think there's any reason to delay going back to Australia. I think every time they go over there, we always enjoy. Like you said, it's not a sexy card, but fans like us, I don't know about the new age fans or the so-called casuals, but fans like us, we don't really get too hot and bothered by the names on the card. What we judge a card by is the performances and whether it delivers or not. The names is just nice. I've seen cards with stacked out names, and it was a boring pay-per-view. Like nobody wanted to do nothing, And I've seen cards where I don't even know who the fuck's on there, and it just delivered from bell to bell to bell to bell. So, like I said, consumers of UFC fight cards like us, with I don't really look at the names on the card. That is nice, but I know better than to just be hung up on the names on the card. It's what you do on the night. That's what I want to see. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I think Australia delivers in that way, and yeah, no reason not to go back there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they there's an opportunity to structure things a little bit different, be a little bit more forward thinking, but I can understand why things don't shake out the way that they want. Like, if you wanted the Ursegs, the Tattoo Ivasas, the Kaikar Francis, Dan Hooker, those fighters on the card, you can find a way to maneuver fights around that, but it just doesn't always work that way. Especially when you have like Dan Hooker, who's on the edge of fighting for a belt. You got Kaikar France, who is also on the edge of fighting for a belt. Steve Ursig can possibly headline, and well, he is going to headline in
On the fight
Mexico.
night.
Yeah, so like you have all these opportunities for them in other places, and I understand how that could take away from having big names on the card. So, whereas you look at UFC London, like they make it a point to make sure that certain fighters make their way to that card. And it just isn't always easy that way. But for how hard it is on fighters who aren't from that area to go over there, the time change and things of that nature, I still think that they do an excellent job of putting the cards on. And I just think that as long as they continue to stay strategic on how they do it, when they do it, and who they put on it, I think it'll always be sold out. I mean, did you see the crowd, like when they got to the Strickland? Like it was so many people in there. It was crazy.
It's
Uh,
wild.
if they're able to continue doing that, I mean, once, twice a year, I think they got to, like you said, continue going to these fighting nations, and hopefully they find their way to South Africa at some point. So Yao
Oh, we
can be
need them
excited.
over there. Yeah, we need them over there in South Africa. Like I'm waiting for when that happens. I've I've spoken to so many of the guys over there, man, and they're like, yeah, anyhow UFC pulls up in South Africa, you better make your way over there. I will buy the ticket, bro. Like just make time and get over there, man. It's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. But in terms of what you was just talking about with the cards, we I was just gonna say that bold fraud. When it comes to England, better not make us fight at 5 fucking a.m. Like we're
Bruh.
not doing, bro. Don't do it to
Dude, they
us this
can't do
time,
that.
bro. Like, bro,
They cannot do that.
nah, man. They not ruined it for us the last time, and it was horrible. But hey,
That made me so upset. Like I feel like I understand that the American audience is probably the bulk of the revenue that the UFC gets. I get it, but the fighters are the people who are performing for you to get the revenue.
that revenue.
I feel like you need to cater towards them so that they can give the best performance that they can possibly give. I don't want a fighter who's defending his belt fighting at 5 a.m. I don't care if he's from there. I don't want him fighting at 5 in the morning. I really, really hate that for Leon. Um, and who knows if they fought the regular time, Bilal still may have done the same thing. But I want to see it that way rather than
Exactly, exactly.
what we got. It's just it shouldn't be that way, and that's coming from somebody who's in America. Like I don't care about watching the car at in the afternoon. That's great. I get my Saturday back. That's great. I'm
Mm.
not mad at that. Like I feel like they should really cater to the region that they're doing it in. Just do it at their time, and we'll be
That's it.
we'll be fine.
Especially when they know that those regions, when the fight card comes back to America, we don't mind staying up ungodly hours to watch it, but don't make our fighters fighting on home soil be fighting at them sort of hours when you know that won't really be afforded to other fighters in other regions when they go over there. So they wouldn't do that in the Middle East when they go over there to Yaz Island or Fight Island, and they wouldn't do that over there. So yeah, I just
Mm-mm.
thought no, it kind of. I mean, look, there's no excuse for Leon to lose in terms of like the timing of the event because Tom Aspinall still won regardless, right? So that's besides the point. But for the fans as well as the fighters, I think what I mean, do it at a normal time that you're
Hmm.
doing, that you do in other countries, and just give us a fair shake. That's it. That's all we're asking for.
Exactly. I mean, and shout out to Fight Night Frankie. He was actually there during that, and he said, "Dude, the crowd was zapped of energy. It was dead in there because it was they would everybody wanted to go to sleep."
It's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
The English fans, the UK fans, they're one of the most rowdiest when it comes to arenas. You can see it coming from TV, and like I said, they go to all these fighting nations. They've been to Mexico with Noche, go to Australia, they go to Ireland, they go to all these different countries, and these are fighting nations, and you see their fans. They so energetic. They bring They bring the noise. You know, they go to Paris. They just bring the noise because they're doing it at normal time. You start doing that on godly hours, man. Like these guys, you know, they're thinking about their drive back home. They're thinking about, you know, going to get kebab, things they can buy at the fuck, things they can't buy at the arena. So you know, these guys just wanna go home and do other things at that time of the night. So yeah, they got to give us a fair shake. I hope you don't do that again, man. When they come back to the UK, I hope. So.
Yeah, it's disrespectful, Dana. It's disrespectful.
That's why I called him a bald fraud. You know what I mean? I do like the howler head though. I'm not gonna lie. I do love the howler.
Yeah,
head. That's a nice drink. It's a nice drink
for sure. So yeah, man. Obviously we gotta do this again. It's always easy to talk to you, but like I said at the jump, y'all, if y'all haven't subscribed to the Fight Week Show, I mean, you should. I'm on there from time to time too, so you kind of have to at this point.
Yeah, man. Come on.
But yeah, y'all, until next time.
Make sure you jump onto the Fight Week Show and show some love over there. I would love to come back on. Anytime you drop an invite, if I can do it, I'm always there, brother.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, bro.